In the heart of Willow Creek, Florida, a postcard-perfect neighborhood with manicured lawns and bungalows that gleamed under the sun, a storm was brewing, both literal and figurative. At the center of it stood Linda Voss, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, her eyes wild with panic as she watched her ostentatious riverfront mansion crumble into the churning waters of the creek. The rain pounded down in biblical torrents, turning her carefully hairsprayed bun into a sodden mess plastered to her scalp. Her prized faux marble columns, the ones she boasted about at every HOA meeting, lay shattered in the mud. That tacky angel-shaped fountain, which she claimed was shipped from Florence, bobbed downstream like a cheap pool toy. Just hours earlier, Linda had been gloating as my Ford pickup was towed into the night, believing she'd crushed me under her rulebook. How did her night of petty victory spiral into this catastrophic loss? Let's rewind to the delicious, karma-soaked chaos that brought her down. I'm Jack Ramsey, a 63-year-old retired civil engineer who moved to Willow Creek dreaming of a quiet life, some fishing, a cold beer, a porch swing to watch the sunset. Instead, I landed in a neighborhood ruled by Linda Voss, a 58-year-old tyrant with the charm of a wasp and the vigilance of a surveillance drone. Willow Creek was a trap disguised as paradise, tidy homes, emerald lawns, and a creek that sparkled like it was auditioning for a travel brochure. But Linda's HOA policed every detail. Grass couldn't grow past 2.5 inches. Mailboxes had to be a bland taupe. Park your car on the street after 9 p.m.? You might as well have committed arson. Linda's own house, a garish monument to excess with its over-the-top columns and a fountain that gurgled like a broken coffee maker, sat perilously close to the creek. As an engineer, I knew that water was a disaster waiting to strike. Trouble found me the day I arrived. I was hauling boxes from my pickup, parked on the street while I carried fishing rods and a toolbox inside, sweat soaking my shirt. Then I saw it, a neon yellow envelope taped to my door like a warning shot. Notice of violation, it screamed. Signed by Linda in a cursive so sharp it could cut glass. Parking past 9 p.m. was a cardinal sin. The note's tone was like a principal scolding a delinquent. Compliance is mandatory, Mr. Ramsey, or penalties will escalate. I'd built bridges and hurricanes. A parking ticket wasn't going to rattle me. So, I decided to play nice. The next morning, I grabbed a tin of my wife's almond brittle, sweet enough to tame a bear, and headed to Linda's. Her house looked like it was trying to star in a tacky reality show. Overblown columns, a lawn mowed to military precision, that fountain spitting water like it was angry. Linda answered in a floral dress that screamed, "I chair the school board." I flashed a grin. "Hey, I'm Jack, your new neighbor. Sorry about the parking. Honest mistake. Let's start fresh." She didn't even glance at the brittle. "Rules aren't optional, Jack," she snapped, her voice like a blade. "Break them again, and you'll pay." The door slammed, leaving me standing there, brittle sweating in the Florida heat, wondering if I'd moved into a gated community or a prison. Linda didn't stop at one jab. She became my personal tormentor, prowling Willow Creek like a vulture with a grudge. I got fined $50 because my porch swing, a wrought tin heirloom from my father, undermined aesthetic unity. She claimed my mailbox was tilted 1.5 degrees off-center, an engineer who designed dams that could withstand quakes. That mailbox was straighter than Linda's ethics. Then came a $25 fine for unauthorized leaf debris because a single magnolia leaf dared land on my driveway. Neighbors whispered their own horror stories. Mrs. Delaney, an 80-year-old widow, was hit with a $75 fine for excessive petunias in her garden. Mike, a dad next door, paid $100 because his kid's bike was visible in the garage for an hour. The bombshell? Linda's mansion had been flagged years ago by a city inspector for being too close to the creek, its foundation at risk of collapsing in a storm. Desperate to sell it for $1 million, she'd buried the report faster than a thief hides stolen goods. I tried to keep the peace. I repainted the swing, swept the driveway, studied the HOA handbook like it was a legal contract. But Linda was relentless, cruising by my house at dusk in her silver SUV, headlights raking my lawn like she was searching for evidence of treason. I started calling her the lawn warden in my head, though I kept that to myself. Then came the night that flipped everything, the night she towed my truck and unleashed a chain reaction that left her staring at a river where her house once stood. It was a muggy Friday, and my garage was flooding from a burst pipe. I parked my pickup on the street for a few hours while I wrestled with a wrench and a bucket. Exhausted, I crashed into bed around 11 p.m., only to be jolted awake by a grinding screech, like metal claws on concrete. Heart pounding, I stumbled to the window. A tow truck's yellow lights flashed like a bad omen, hooking my truck. And there, arms crossed in a raincoat that screamed villain, was Linda Voss, her face lit with a smirk so smug it could sour milk. I threw on a jacket, yanked on boots, and charged outside, the humid air hitting me like a slap. Rain was starting to fall, the kind that promises chaos. "Linda, what the hell?" I shouted over the tow truck's rumble. She turned, eyes glinting under the streetlight. "You parked past 9 p.m., Jack," she said, her voice dripping with mock pity. "Rules are rules. Maybe you'll listen next time." The tow guy, a burly man who looked like he'd rather be home, shrugged and kept working. I was livid. "Linda, I'm fixing a leak. Give me a break." She laughed, a sharp, hyena-like cackle. "Brakes are for people who respect the HOA. Pay the fine and get your heat back." The truck lurched forward, my Ford dangling like a trophy, and I was left in the rain, pajamas soaked, watching my pride vanish into the night. I stormed inside, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. My blood boiled, but I wasn't about to let Linda win. I called the towing company, learning it had cost $400 to retrieve my truck, plus a fee because it was after hours. Pacing, I cursed under my breath, then noticed the rain intensifying into a deluge, the kind that makes rivers roar. I glanced toward Linda's house, that gaudy palace on the creek's edge, and remembered the inspector's report: shaky foundation, erosion risk. A disaster waiting for a storm like this. A grim smile crept across my face. Maybe the universe was about to do what I couldn't. By 2 a.m., the rain was a beast, pounding the roof like a war drum. Thunder growled, and the creek roared like it had a vendetta. Sleepless, I pulled on a raincoat and stepped onto my porch, the air thick with wet earth and ozone. Then I heard Ida crack like a giant snapping a tree. Squinting through the downpour, I saw Linda's house, porch lights blazing, her silhouette in the window, probably drafting another violation notice. Another crack, louder, followed by a grinding groan. The ground beneath her house was sliding toward the creek like it was on tracks. I grabbed my binoculars. I'm that guy, and watched the creek bank crumble, taking chunks of Linda's lawn. Her tacky fountain tipped over, splashing into the water, and then, with a sound like a freight train, the house lurched. Columns snapped, walls buckled, the roof caved in as the creek swallowed it whole. 1 minute, it was Linda's pride. The next, a pile of debris churning downstream. Linda ran outside, her raincoat flapping, screaming, "My house! My house!" as she slipped in the mud, clawing at the air like she could drag her mansion back. I should have felt pity, but after months of her tyranny, all I thought was, well, Linda, the creek doesn't care about your rules. I wasn't alone. Neighbors peeked out, flashlights bobbing in the dark. Mrs. Delaney, wrapped in a shawl, muttered, "Good riddance." Mike, on his porch with a beer despite the hour, shook his head. We all knew it. Linda's reign had been washed away. But I knew she wouldn't slink off quietly. I had that inspector's report, plus a stack of evidence about her HOA scams burning a hole in my desk. This night was about to get wilder, and I was ready to end her rule for good. Even as Linda's columns floated away, I knew this wasn't over. She wasn't just a petty dictator. She was a schemer who'd been fleecing Willow Creek for years. With my truck towed and my patience gone, I was ready to bury her reign legally. The storm had done half the work. Now it was my turn. I'd been building a case against her for weeks, ever since Mike slipped me that inspector's report about her house's weak foundation. Over coffee, I combed through HOA records, sweet-talking Mrs. Delaney into sharing her stash of newsletters dating back to '98. I found gold, emails from Linda to a shady towing company, promising exclusive contracts for a cut of every impounded car. My $400 towing bill? Part of it went to her. Invoices showed her cousin's landscaping firm charged triple for basic work. The jackpot? A recording from an HOA meeting, secretly taped by Mike's wife, where Linda bragged, "Fines keep this place running, and I keep the fines coming." Her voice was pure venom, and I saved that file like it was treasure. I knocked on doors, collecting stories from neighbors too scared to speak up. Mrs. Delaney showed me a $200 fine for Christmas LEDs that barely lit her porch. Mike had penalties for excessive mailbox wear. Mr. Gomez, who barely spoke English, got a $150 fine for fence paint that matched everyone else's. Linda was running a racket, using the HOA to extort us while hiding her own violations. That buried report proved she'd dodged city regulations to boost her sale price, endangering the neighborhood if the creek turned ugly. And it had. After the storm, with Linda's house a soggy memory, I called a backyard meeting. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with mud and pine. A dozen neighbors showed up, clutching mugs and chairs, their faces a mix of shock and glee. Mrs. Delaney whispered, "I never thought I'd see the day." Mike cracked a beer, grinning. "Karma's got a mean streak." I spread the evidence on my picnic table mails, invoices, the recording, the report like a detective. "Linda's been fleecing us," I said. "The creek took her house, but we need to make sure she can't come back." Nods all around. "We plan to clean, legal takedown, report her to the city for hiding the report, fraud, file a complaint with the state HOA board with our evidence, and push for an emergency election to oust her as president." My lawyer friend, Tom, reviewed the evidence over burgers and whistled. "Jack, she's done." I drove to the tow lot, shelling out $400 while the clerk avoided my eyes. My truck was fine, but I wasn't. I kept seeing Linda's smirk as it rolled away. Back home, I emailed the city and state board, attaching the evidence with a firm note. "Linda Voss's actions have harmed Willow Creek. Please investigate." Mrs. Delaney and Mike helped circulate a petition for the HOA election, and neighbors signed faster than kids grabbing candy, some scribbling their own horror stories. By evening, we had 30 signatures, enough to force a vote. Linda, holed up in a dingy motel, sent emails whining about negligent city planning and vowing to rebuild. Rebuild with what? Her collection of floral dresses? I almost pitied her, almost. Then I remembered my garden, a $100 fine for unauthorized landscaping because my tomatoes and peppers dared to exist. The city moved fast. A week later, investigators poked through the wreckage of Linda's mansion, noting her fraud in hiding the erosion risk and dodging taxes by misreporting her property's boundaries. The fine was so steep it could have bought my truck twice. Linda served the notice at her motel, tore it up, screaming, "This is an outrage." The state HOA board summoned her to a hearing, playing her own voice. "Fines keep this place running." The room went silent. By week's end, she was stripped of her presidency and banned from HOA roles forever. Our emergency election was a triumph. Neighbors packed the community center, the air thick with coffee and defiance. Mrs. Delaney nominated Mike as president, joking about his grilling skills and lack of fines. Mike promised fair rules and no nighttime patrols. I helped draft a new handbook, capping fines at $10 and requiring board approval for warnings. When the results came, someone popped cheap champagne, and we toasted to freedom. Linda sent a final email, claiming sabotage and threatening lawsuits. No one replied. She moved to a cramped apartment, reportedly harassing her landlord about hallway lights. Good luck, Linda. Willow Creek transformed. Mrs. Delaney's bird feeder returned, sparrows flocking like they sensed the change. Mike's kid left his bike out, and no one cared. My garden bloomed with tomatoes so vibrant they'd shame Linda's wardrobe. The creek, once a threat, felt like an ally. I hosted a barbecue by its banks, the air rich with ribs and charcoal. Neighbors swapped stories, laughing at Linda's fines like battle scars. Mike raised a beer. To Jack, who didn't let that tyrant win. I waved it off. The creek deserves the credit. I just nudged it. But I was proud. We toppled a bully with facts, patience, and a little help from nature. Karens thrive on fear, but they crumble when you expose their schemes.